Welcome to Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. Thanks for listening and tuning into the Day Weather Podcast today. High pressures overhead. This is going to keep us warm, August warm. No one's going to shatter any heat records. This is just the dog days of summer. 80s and 90s will be commonplace across the region. And again, we'll have some haziness, although there was remarkable improvement in some areas of especially Wyoming, parts of southern Montana and the region. But there were areas that were really bad with the smoke. And we kind of may see kind of a checkerboard pattern with the smoke and haze here in the coming days. So it's improving, but still there. Moisture is really increasing again in Arizona, New Mexico, and the Four Corners region, and across Mexico. This is likely the last hurrah, the last big surge of monsoonal moisture coming in for the summer season. But it could be very impressive, especially for the desert southwest. But we'll see some of that moisture get northward into our neck of the woods, further into the Central Rockies and High Plains later this week and over the weekend, and some rain chances next week. We do see changes in the pattern next week, and our confidence is growing. This is what we like to say a fundamental change, an altering of the jet stream pattern across North America that's going to make the weather different. Across the Intermountain West and the Western High Plains, it's still going to be summer. We're not talking about a shift to a dramatic change in the weather, but subtle little changes that you're going to notice as we go into the next couple of weeks. Yesterday, I took a snapshot of the satellite imagery. This was around noontime yesterday, Mountain Time, and I'm going to highlight here, this is a visible satellite image. There was a real east-west connection with the way the smoke was oriented yesterday, and you can see it right here across the Intermountain West from Northern California, across the northern tier of Nevada, then right along Interstate 80. But notice on the satellite image here, notice how the skies really cleared out across northwestern and northern Wyoming, many areas of Idaho, but then look how smoky and hazy Utah and Colorado were. So the smoke was really bad here, clear skies, really nice conditions up there. You can see a little bit of forest fire activity there east of Billings. That grass forest mix fire up there is still burning and still producing some smoke. So there should be some help on the way maybe later this week up there. But the satellite image really shows you the contrast between the thicker smoke along an axis here than another axis where the skies were more clear. And this morning, yes, those are the Tetons. Here's a shot out of Moose, Wyoming, taken just before we started the podcast here. You could actually see the Tetons and parts of the mountains in some parts of the Intermountain West yesterday, and I think everybody was happy to see that. Quick update, it is now Tropical Storm Fred, and that activity is going to be making some news here. And if you look at the forecast, as we go into the end of the week and the weekend, Fred is likely going to become a tropical storm going up along the west coast of Florida. Of course, you always have to be cautious when you look at these tracks of tropical storms and hurricanes. It could end up somewhere, anywhere in that fan right there. But that activity is picking up, and that's something going forward that'll be grabbing more news and headlines as we get towards the beginning of the more active hurricane season. This is the current snapshot of the upper level pattern. We've got a really large area of high pressure here just off the coast of Washington and Oregon. So a lot of warm air underneath this high pressure system right here. This trough of low pressure swung across southern Canada yesterday, and that's one reason why the smoke got suppressed. You see the upper level winds here kind of pushing that smoke more towards Colorado and Utah. So there's going to be some areas today that won't have as much smoke because of that. But as this trough moves away, winds aloft will become more westerly to east, and we'll start to see some of that smoke and haze move back in again. This is where we are for Sunday. Now notice the high pressure ridge here today is gone by Sunday, more sequestered back down into the Great Basin and pushing east into the Rockies. So it's going to stay really warm here through the weekend in this area here. However, as I will show you here in a minute, there's an impressive amount of moisture down across the parts of northern Mexico, southern Arizona, this area right here, that's going to have an opportunity to get drawn up as we get into as early as tomorrow, but as we get on into Friday and as we get into the weekend, afternoon and evening thunderstorm activity will increase. So there's a pretty significant change from here to by Sunday, and then look at Tuesday. We've got a Pacific trough and a cold front coming into Idaho, Washington, Oregon, even Northern California and Montana, with high pressure building up here in the Gulf of Alaska. And we'll talk about this here in a minute, because this is part of the fundamental change, kind of a big readjustment that's going to be happening with the overall weather pattern, especially by the middle to the end of next week. And if we were to go out further, this is by next Friday and Saturday. Notice this ridge of high pressure growing in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, for those of you who have been watching the podcast, listening to the podcast for a while, you might remember this phrase. When there's a ridge here, we go into the fridge. Basically, when high pressure builds in the Gulf of Alaska, that directs the jet stream in more from the northwest into the Intermountain and the Rockies. So this is going to result in a cooling trend for this part of the nation here by the middle to the end of next week, while the heat goes more into the nation's Midwest, and that is opening that door to the tropical activity coming on in, because low pressure from those tropical storms and hurricanes that'll be forming want to be directed towards the low pressure. That's what brings them in. So this is really a classic mid to late August kind of pattern that we've seen historically. And what gives us increased confidence that this will happen is sea surface temperatures. This is a sea surface map, latest update, sea surface temperatures. This was taken on Sunday. Here is that La Nina region of those cool sea surface temperatures there, but I want you to pay attention not to there, but to here. Notice these warm sea surface temperatures relative to average up in the Gulf of Alaska. That gives it a better opportunity, those warmer sea surface temperatures, for high pressure to get established there. So what we may see for the backside of August is high pressure wanting to have a tendency, again, a tendency to want to be in this area here, aided by those warmer sea surface temperatures, and that's going to direct cooler air from the northwest into western North America. So what we may find is that while August is off to a typically warm August start, the second half of August is going to start to cool off. Now, if we do get this high pressure ridge to build here, these are temperatures relative to average by next Friday. So what you see in the blue and the green are below average temperatures, red above average. And what's going to happen across North America is you're going to get this dividing line. It's going to be warmest in the east relative to average and cooler in the west. Look at this area of coolness that goes from Alaska to the southern plains of Texas, and then west of the Continental Divide in the Rockies of Canada, and then across the Intermountain West. Even parts of California, Arizona, the Intermountain West is not going to be nearly as hot. So for those of you who are complaining about the heat, there's help on the way. Temperature-wise and precipitation-wise changes as well. This is the precipitation forecast for the next 10 days. A couple of highlights here. Look at all of this rain in Arizona, Mexico, and New Mexico. This is a significant swath of monsoonal moisture going into these areas here. You know, models predicting 2 to 4 inches of rain in some areas. But also notice we're going to see some of that get a little north, and there is going to be some afternoon and evening thunderstorm activity later this week and into the beginning of the weekend. And as these fronts come out of the Pacific Northwest, we're going to see southwestern Canada get into the mix. Montana, you know, there may be more rain in Montana and North Dakota than the model is showing, and that'll be good news for the wildfires up there. Still nothing that looks really wet for Northern California, but those cooler temperatures will mean higher humidities and better conditions to help with the fire situation there. So this is actually, when we talk about the longer term, good news for the region. If we were to take this out to 2 weeks, you can see over the next 2 weeks, the forecast for precipitation up here is good. It's not great, but it's good for considering the time of year. And then you can see that heavier subtropical moisture there. So things are shifting, changing around a little bit. Have yourself a great Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.